Hey everybody, it's Chris from Cali Raised, and today we're going to be installing rock sliders for the 2014 through 21 Toyota Tundra. Here in front of me today is our Trail Edition rock slider. It is beefy, as you can see. All of our Tundra rock sliders are made with 2-inch DOM tubing standard. Lots of gussets, lots of tube work here. This thing is pure beef. Lots of extra support here on the back side. Great frame plates, all seamless, one-piece design. This thing is made to take the weight of your vehicle. As you see here, we have a bed-lined version. We also sell these raw and powder-coated. If you do want to do a step edition, it is wider right here, and you can combine the coatings with the powder-coated slider and a bed-lined filler plate, or whatever way you want to go. Lots of options. Let's get these things installed today. We do have a couple preparations we need to do with the hardware before we can get the sliders up on the truck. That's mainly taking these clip-on nuts and putting them in these brackets. We're going to start by grabbing a clip-on nut and one of our brackets, and you simply take these hooks, put it in, squeeze, and it clicks in, just like that. We're going to do it for all 4 brackets. For these ones, it goes on this side right here. It doesn't matter which way you put them, but get them in there. With all these in place, we can now start working on the truck. The first step of our installation is prepping our Tundra for the rock sliders. The first thing we need to do is remove this plastic cap right here. You'll see this big rectangle hole on the outside of the frame. The same thing is on the inside. We need to get this cap out. I'm going to use a simple flat screwdriver. We're going to slide it underneath the clip and pop it out. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our smaller rectangle piece that we put our nut in. It's going to slide in this hole right here. Your frame has a smaller hole on the inside and a bigger hole on the outside. You're going to put it with the nut facing up. You're going to simply put it in and let it rest in place. We will adjust this later. Next, we need to remove the bolts that hold our emergency brake line cable to the frame. There's one right here. There are 2 over here. We do not need to remove this one in the back. There is also this bracket right here, and this bolt needs to be taken out as well. The 3 bolts we just took out were 12 millimeters. This one is a 14. With all these bolts out, we're now going to take these little mounting brackets and we're going to tuck them up out of the way. As you can see, we now have the rock slider up on some jack stands and in position on the truck. I want to point out a couple notes that'll make this easier for you. First of all, I'm using jack stands to hold the truck up, or to hold the slider up. These are just the cheapies from Harbor Freight. They do make taller ones, but these Tundra's frames are pretty low, so the short ones actually are the better fit for this. What we did as we brought the slider in, we set it on the stands, we pushed it up against the frame, and then we lifted it up into position. What I'm using to align this are these big holes here in the frame plate, and I'm lining them up with the rivets in the frame. There's 2 right here, there's 2 back here. You get those lined up and your slider is about in the position it needs to be. We're going to start with the driver's side. The first bolt we're going to put in is a 1/2-inch bolt. It's the middle length. It's going to go in this first position on the main frame plate up here. If you have a bed liner slider like this one, these holes can have a little bit of extra bed liner in them. That's okay. Just start to push it in and you can actually thread it right through, or you can use a tool to push it in. With our first bolt in, it's going to help hold this slider in position. I've got the bolt with the washer. On the back side, we're going to put one of our backing plates. then a washer, then a lock nut. Now we're going to move back to the next 2 bolts on the frame. For these ones, we have the gas tank here on the driver's side, so we're going to be using these handles that we prepared earlier with the nut. We're going to use the handle to hold it up in place, and then we're going to put our bolt with our washer in from the outside. Moving back, we're still on the main frame plate here. If you look at our arms that come from our frame plate to the slider, there's 1, 2. On the back side of the second arm, that's where your next 1/2-inch bolt goes. We're going to push it through like we did before and thread it into this. We got it in there snug, but still room for adjustment. We're now going to move further back and do the next hole, which is on the back side of the third arm. So a note for your 2 handles, 1 here and 1 here. They hang down below, but what we want to do is get them threaded, and we're actually going to pivot them up inside the frame right here. That's going to allow these to tighten down nicely, and you still have hold of them. Same with this one in the back position. I got it started. I'm holding it back here. I'm using it to tighten my slider up. With those 3 main bolts in, we can now start to work on our emergency brake line brackets. We're going to use our factory hardware. We're going to put them back in, 1 in the front, 2 in the back, and then if you have this additional bracket in the back, we're going to put that one in too. We're going to start with our emergency brake line bracket in the front position. You'll see that the slider frame plate has 2 holes. The bottom one is for the little tab, and the top one is for the bolt. We left everything loose so that we can adjust this and do whatever we need to get this bolt in. Now we're going to move to the next one. Same thing, lining it up, getting our bolt in. And finally, the bigger bolt in the back bracket. Leave these all snug but not tightened down. We'll do that at the very end. We're now going to put our bolt in here. This is going to be the metric bolt with a split washer and a flat washer. We're now going to take our M8 bolt. We're going to slide a split lock washer on there, then a flat washer. It's going to go through the slider and into the threads that are already in your frame. You may need to adjust your slider to get it to thread in. The next one we're going to install is this bottom bolt right here. We're going to be using our shortest of our 1/2-inch bolts, and we're going to put a washer on it. If you remember, this is where we put our plate in here. Using the hole in the back, I'm going to use my finger and I'm going to line that bolt up with the hole on the slider. Once it's lined up, I'm going to put my bolt in here and thread it into that backing plate. With the thread started here, we can now move on to our clamps up here in the front. Toyota has a couple different frames for the Tundra, so depending on your year, make, and model, you're going to either need 2 short spacers or 2 long spacers. We give you both so that you can make the determination on your truck. This one right here needs the long spacers, and so we're going to get those installed right now. Starting with one of our bolts, we're going to take a washer and put it on. Then it's going to go up through this hole in the bottom here. With the bolt in place, we're going to grab our spacer and slide it over. Then we're going to take our clamp and we're going to slide it over, ensuring that this hooks on the inside of the frame. Then a washer. then a lock nut. We're going to do the same for this position. Just watch out for your handle that's right here that we used for the bolt on the front of the frame here. Installed our bolt, then our spacer, then our clamp, then a washer, and lastly we'll put a lock nut on there. With these two clamps in place, we're going to leave them loose for now, and we're going to move to our really long bolt up here in the front of the slider. Now we're going to put this long guy in. You're going to start by installing a washer, then a backing plate. You're going to push this bolt through this large rectangle here. It's going to come all the way through the frame to the rectangle on the other side, and then through the frame plate on the front of the slider. Looking at it from this side, you see where we pushed it through the rectangle on the back? There's this slot on the front of the slider right here, and we pushed our bolt all the way through. This slot is here so that you can adjust the rotation of the bolt so that you can get it squared up with the frame. Once you got it where you want it, put on your washer, put on your lock nut. That completes putting in all the bolts here on the driver's side. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to level our slider out. It should be pretty darn straight with the frame right now, but there is a little bit of adjustment built into this. So if you need to rotate it slightly to get it in position, you can do so. Once you've got it nice and parallel with the frame, I'm going to tighten up the two 1/2-inch bolts right here and here that have the handles on the back to lock it in place. After that, I'm going to simply move from front to back, and I'm going to put all the bolts all the way tight. After tightening all the bolts on the frame, this completes the installation for the driver's side. The passenger side is pretty much the same with a couple small differences. There's no fuel tank, so there's no handles to mess with. And on that metric bolt on the back, it's actually going to be a 3/8 bolt with a washer and a nut. Let's move over to the other side and get it installed. Just like we did on the driver's side, we're going to start by removing this plastic clip and installing our nut plate. With the two prep items we did in the front, that's all that we need to do here on the passenger side. There's no emergency brake cable on this side, so now we're just going to get our slider and put it in position. With our 3 1/2-inch bolts in, we're now going to move to these back ones. Because we don't have the emergency brake line, it's a little bit different. Instead of the M8 going in from the bottom, it's going to be a 3/8 bolt. Same with the two positions where the e-brake cable was. We're going to be putting 3/8 bolts in there with washers and nuts to lock the back of the slider in. We're going to grab our 3/8 bolt. We're going to put on a washer. We're going to push it up through here and install another washer and a lock nut. So we just got our 3 3/8 bolts in the back. We have the one on the bottom, we have the one on the very back, and we have the one right in front of it. Starting in the front again, we are going to grab our short bolt and put on a washer, and then we are going to thread it through the slider and into our backing plate with the nut. With our front bolt in position, now we're going to repeat our steps on the clamps. Take your bolt, install your washer, push it in, and Install your spacer, your clamp, a washer, and a lock nut. With our clamps in, the last thing we need to do is move to the front and install our long bolt. Install the washer, install the backing plate, push it through the rectangle in the frame and through your slider. All of our hardware is now installed. We're going to go through and level our slider and tighten it all down just like we did on the driver's side. That completes the installation of the rock sliders on our Toyota Tundra. Please check out CaliRaisedLED.com for all of your off-road accessories or technical help. Thank you. What's up with these sharp edges, Toyota?